Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. So in this video, I played back a clip of somebody from the city of Dearborn, Michigan, who was saying that you don't have a right to privacy when you're driving around in a stolen car. One of the things that I pointed out is that in the United States, a big part of our law is innocent until proven guilty, which means that you don't get to just assume that I'm driving around in a stolen car simply because I am driving around in a car. That is not how this works. That is not how this should ever work. Now, there was a comment on this video that was interesting, and I wanted to read it to you because a lot of you have been asking, what do I do? What do I say? How do I push back against this? And I want to put together a website for this, but I don't have the time for it because I run 3 nonprofits, 2 businesses, and every now and then I try to pretend that I have a life. I don't have time to answer all of it. So I'm going to try to do it, some of it, with this video. When some of these items come up, the reason I want to share this argument with you is because I think that until I can put together a website that shows you where all your city council meetings are, which I am planning to do for every city council meeting that has to do with Flock or Live View throughout the country, I want to give you some material that you may be able to use for yourself when people come up with this type of garbage. Carey Holzman: you must hate the First Amendment of the USA. You nor any other American has any expectation of privacy within a public space. How can you not know this? Now again, not like I disagree for XYZ. I must hate the First Amendment of the USA. Here's my response to this, and hopefully this helps people like you out who are looking for something to say when you are faced with something like this by your freedom-hating politicians. I think you've confused the First Amendment, free speech, with the Fourth Amendment, protection against unreasonable searches. Privacy rights in public spaces are governed by the Fourth Amendment, and that word reasonable is doing a lot of work that you're ignoring. The Fourth Amendment doesn't say no searches. It says no unreasonable searches. And your claim that Americans have no expectation of privacy in public makes no sense in context of the Fourth Amendment. Look at Carpenter versus United States, a case from 2018. The Supreme Court held that comprehensive location tracking violates the Fourth Amendment, even though people's movements occurred in public. Chief Justice Roberts wrote that it does near perfect surveillance, as if it had attached an ankle monitor to the phone's user. The court rejected your argument, stating that a person does not surrender all Fourth Amendment protections by venturing into the public sphere. And I quote, "A person does not surrender all Fourth Amendment protections by venturing into the public sphere." That's not Louis Rossman saying this. Supreme fucking court. I will link this down below for you to see. Here are some examples to clarify for you. A cop sees you drive through an intersection once. Not a Fourth Amendment problem. B, automated cameras photograph your plate at every intersection 24/7. Retain data for 30 plus days, create a searchable database of your movements, and allow thousands of agencies to retroactively search where you've been. That's a Fourth Amendment problem. And that is exactly what they were warning about. Note where they say reasonable expectation of privacy, not no privacy in public. Justice Sotomayor explained in U.S. versus Jones in 2012 why automated surveillance differs from humans looking at stuff. It evades the ordinary tricks that constrain abusive law enforcement practices, limit police resources, and community hostility. GPS monitoring and automated license plate readers create a precise, comprehensive record of a person's public movements that reflect a wealth of detail about her familial, political, professional, religious, and sexual associations. Mosaic theory is something where many observations can be seen as a search, even when individual observations wouldn't. One cop seeing you once is not the same as an automated system tracking your every movement for months. Think of it like stalking. If I see you at H-E-B once, that's fine. But if I follow you everywhere for 30 days, I document your every location, I create a database of it, and I share it with thousands of people, that's stalking. And that is a crime in all 50 states. The Fourth Amendment's reasonableness standard recognizes that scale matters, and it changes how we analyze this. Here are some numbers from cities dealing with this. Denver has 111 cameras, I believe. This could change by the time this video is uploaded, knowing Mayor Johnston, scanning 2 million plates monthly. Norfolk has 172 plus cameras covering the entire city. Austin has cameras that scans 113 million plates in 1 year. Norfolk's federal lawsuit, Schmidt versus City of Norfolk, wasn't dismissed. Chief Judge Mark Davis wrote that a reasonable person could believe that society's expectations, as laid out by the court in Carpenter, are being violated by the Norfolk Flock system. The complaint alleges facts notably similar to those in Carpenter. Law enforcement secretly monitoring and cataloging the whole of tens of thousands of individual movements over an extended period. This is going to go to trial fall of 2025 and could be one of the first federal ruling requiring warrants for automated license plate readers. United States versus Knotts from 1983 holds that limited tracking wasn't a search, but reserved the question of whether different constitutional principles may be applicable to dragnet-type law enforcement practices. Keyword, dragnet. This is what this is, a dragnet. These systems scan and track billions of license plates and locations regularly that do not all belong to people who are criminals. In fact, over 99.5%, if not more, belong to people who are not criminals. You asked, how can you not know this? But I'll ask you a better question, Carey. How can you ignore decades of Supreme Court precedent that says comprehensive surveillance violates reasonable expectations of privacy when it becomes a dragnet, prolonged, and is retrospectively searchable? First Amendment auditors use protected speech to make sure the government remains transparent, whereas automated license plate reader surveillance systems using AI bring in Fourth Amendment protections because they allow for general, warrantless dragnet surveillance that the founders prohibited. I'll be honest, disagreements are one thing. I have them with people I love all the time. It's the particular way that you phrase these things that's just off. You must hate the First Amendment of the USA. Like, you can just hear the bitch in the beginning of the voice. I don't know how else to say it. I just have no respect for this. But Lewis, what if it helps solve crime? There's an episode of Black Mirror. And in that episode of Black Mirror, there's something called a grain. A grain is kind of like a camera that's inside of your head. And what people can do is they can look at the camera that's inside your head, and they can just look at the history of everything it recorded and see what you did at any given time. Why not just put a grain in everybody's head and give access to that to every city employee? Then anytime somebody commits a crime, you can just have all that information fed into ChatGPT and then just type, who did this? You could solve 100% of crime right now. How far are you willing to go? How much are you willing to give up in order to live in a world where there's 0.1% less crime? And do you want to live in that world? Maybe it's because I'm old, but I remember when crime waves went up and went down based on normal policing that did not involve recording where everybody went all the time. If you're more left-wing, you probably think more social programs will do that. If you're more right-wing, you probably think that when Giuliani took over as mayor of New York City, that's when crime started going down because of a different style of policing. Regardless of where you are in the political spectrum, the one area where every single person should come together is to say, you know what? There's probably better ways to deal with crime than watching where everybody's going all the time and making them pay for it. And I'd like to unite people around that. Do you want to be watched everywhere that you go? You may think that my Black Mirror example is silly, but it is not. Several episodes of Black Mirror that you guys call predicting the future are not. They're actually documenting the past. Season 7, episode 1. Woman gets a brain implant because something goes wrong with her brain. Company decides they want more money. Something goes on with the company. And her brain implant no longer works the way it's supposed to. That is not a prediction of the future. That is a documenting of the past. The grain episode came out about 10 years ago. Very soon. You laugh at Neuralink now. Give it 10, 20, 30 years. There's a good chance that I live long enough for somebody to make the argument that having that grain in your brain and having city employees have access to it, but only if there's a crime. Don't worry. There's an AI looking through it. We audit that regularly. No big deal. It's a requirement to live in this country. I don't want to live in that world. I hope you don't want to live in that world either. Because that sounds like a pretty crappy world to live in. You may think that that's silly. If I told you 30 years ago that every single one of your communications, private or otherwise, would be read through and that people would agree to it if they simply got 1 gigabyte of free email storage and 25 megabyte attachments when everybody else offered nothing. Would you believe that? If I told you that your entire web browsing history and everything that you do and all of your devices would be spied on all the time and used to try and figure out a profile of how to sell you things just so that you could scroll through and see people that you went to high school with and read their political opinions, would you believe that? If I told you that your LG washing machine would have in its contract that they sell your personal data and that you'd be okay with it, they would put advertisements inside of your refrigerator, that your thermostat will become ransomware. Would you believe it? I'm not asking you to subscribe to some shitty service. I'm not asking you to buy my courses. I'm not asking you to click on some fucking link so that I can make money when you sign up for ExpressVPN. I'm just asking you to imagine, based on everything that you've seen occur over the past 5 to 10 to 20 years, that maybe, just maybe, creating an AI surveillance network throughout our entire country, something that we used to laugh at China about, like 5 minutes ago, might not be a good idea. And to maybe think twice before spewing this type of garbage. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now. Because I have a lot more to say. There's a lot more I want to say. But I got to pet Blackberry the cat. Because if I don't start petting Blackberry, she's going to be very mad at me. You always got to pet your cat. Look at how happy she is. Look at this little 16-year-old relic of a kitty. Actually, she's 15 and a half. She'll be 16 in 2 months. Yeah. 2.5 months about. Wow, she really likes this. That's a good kitty. Hi. Want to be watched everywhere you go? Probably not, girl. Actually, you probably do want to be watched everywhere you go. You'd love the attention, wouldn't you? You're different, though. You're a good little blackberry. You're so much cuter than Clementine. So much cuter. And you're prettier. And you're wittier. All right. See you next time.